Grant Sebastian here with my co-host S.A. Paz Collins for this week's Written on the Edge, Season 8, Episode 33, Friday Interview. We'll be getting to know Hamour Baika better, talking about their novel Stolen Moments of Joy. So let's welcome our guest. Hamour Baika was born in Iran and lived in Ahwaz during his teen years. He wrote his first novella, a fan fiction piece about the alien creature E.T. at age 12. He has a master's degree in human rights, he's a painter and a classical pianist, and he now lives in Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Hamour, welcome to the
Thanks so
show.
much for having me. Very
Our
exciting.
pleasure. So, what was the fire? Where was the passion to write an ET story? Where did that come
I
from?
think it came from
Yeah,
my uh,
because I'm not seeing hunka hunka burning love when you look at ET.
I think I just wanted to
Just
insert
saying.
myself and say, hey, this scene could be different if I did this or if I did that. I think at the very end
Okay.
there is a scene where the ship is moving away and the reaction I thought isn't the way I thought the character should be reacting. So I think that was the scene, the very end of the movie, that I thought, hey, I should redo this. Not a
Nice.
great idea. For a 12-year-old, that's fine.
Nice. All right. So, tell us about your novel, Stolen Moments of Joy.
This is a story about an Afghan refugee who now lives in Baltimore in year 2014 in a situation of domestic violence with his boyfriend. Um, so he's unhappy at home, and he runs into this activist poet magnet type of a guy, and they end up having an affair, and that reinforces the main character's left sense of shame and things that have happened in his past. So the story is about what he is going to do and how he's going to move on from his own bad choices and from life conditions that are not that great.
Right. So, for American audiences, let's talk first about how being a refugee has shaped his experience.
Yeah, so the main character, his name is Abdul Ali. He is an Afghan refugee who was actually born in Iran, um, and happens to have grown up in the same city that I grew up in. Um, so his family is from Afghanistan. He was born in Iran. He pretty much grew up in Iran as a refugee. Um, so after the war, well, the U.S. war in Afghanistan, his family
Right.
repatriates to Afghanistan. But in their life in Iran as refugees, um, in the 90s, where Abdul is growing up, Iran was, I think, the country that hosted the largest number of refugees from Afghanistan, um, and the conditions of life became increasingly difficult for Afghan refugees. One of the examples is that, like, the Minister of Education needs to reissue a like policy update at the beginning of each academic year to allow Afghan refugees to go to school. Um, in I think in the decade of 2010s, different cities started like having restrictions of freedom of movement of Afghan individuals. So that, for example, you can't go to this city, or you can't go to this park, or you can't go to here, you can't go there. Um, and as a side note, I want to acknowledge, as like a disclaimer, acknowledge that um, I know that certain ethnic groups, particularly Hazaras, are unhappy about the word Afghan to as an umbrella term that refuse all people from Afghanistan. Um, but when I talk to the couple of my sensitivity readers who are Hazara, they advise me that it's okay to use Afghan as opposed to Afghanistani. Um, So I just wanted to make that clear. I don't mean any disrespect to any of the ethnic minorities, and I am aware of at least the basics when it comes to the situation um, that unfortunately has deteriorated over the past few years. But sorry, that was a very long answer. You asked about uh, being a refugee and how that can impact. One of the things that I wish writers and authors paid more attention to is how we talk about refugees. I vividly remember this example in one of the books that's written by another person of color. And it was an analogy, and she said he was so hungry that he was eating like Ethiopian refugees. And I thought that was not cool.
Yeah, no, it's uncalled for.
I'm like, refugees, whether Ethiopian or not, come in all different, like, I'm trying to not go.
There's many reasons. There's many reasons to be a refugee.
Exactly. And poverty may or may not be involved, and the situation that makes you run could be this or that. So um, we don't need to, like, kind of look down.
Better not. It's better not
Right.
to paint with that brush. Just put that brush down.
Thank you for saying. I was like trying to be. That's the best way of saying it. Thank you.
You don't need that brush. Well, you mentioned that they made some bad choices. I'm assuming that the character made some of the bad choices due to reasons of survival, or were they literally just bad choices because of where they were in their own headspace? Or was it like from outside influences that forced them to make a choice of like two evils or two bad things, and they had to make the best of it? So when you say that, which do you mean?
I think it's probably a mix of both. Um,
Okay.
I'm trying not to spoil it, but there are things that are within his power that he should have um, realized a little bit earlier. But at the same time, I don't want to be like extra harsh on this fictitious character that lived
Mm-hmm.
very difficult circumstances. Um, One of my sensitivity readers described him as a weak person, um, and I can't judge that sensitivity reader either because I don't know what circumstances she lived through. Um, but I'm like, I wish I was as strong as Abdul is. The things that he endured and thrived despite of are things that I don't know if I could have done that. And I think he's I really like the main character. I think he's really resilient and intense sometimes. If he's your best friend, he definitely needs things like you need to give him time and attention. Um, it can't be a superficial friendship, but I think it's worth it. I really enjoyed him.
Right. Right. And it reminds me, a lot of what you're describing also reminds me of a film that Vance and I watched and reviewed called Flea, which was an Academy Award nominated movie about a queer refugee coming from that part of the world. And one of the things that I got out of it was the enormous amounts of courage that that resilience is kind of expressed in. And so I can definitely understand how you, even writing a character, that character can aspire to things that you can't see yourself doing, but it's part of the human equation. There are people like that who could, you know and I think that one of the things that we as authors tend to forget, we try to be sensitive to other cultures that we're not a part of, but I think the real thing is we also need to look at what our character's story arc is, and that a certain culture is not a monolith, that your character can have variations that may not fit the cultural norms, but it doesn't take away. It's kind of what makes their story unique. So I think there's a balance that you have to have when you're writing some of these characters. How did it come across for you? Because obviously they're making a flight out of where they were to where they've come. How did you find, and how did you research or plan, or was it just by happenstance that you let it evolve organically when they come into contact with cultures that aren't their own? How did you deal with that aspect of writing it?
For the portion that was in Iran, I relied on my sensitivity readers to find things that I'm blind to. Um,
Mhm.
when it came to coming to the US and how it impacted the way Abdul behaves, I kind of drew on my own experience. I came in a lot later than he did. He came to the US as a unaccompanied minor, so he was still under 18. Um, so that's I'm so happy you said that one character doesn't have to represent like their entire culture, and they can have their own individual um, like personality. Because I know Abdul in a way is a little bit too westernized, but also he came here as a child, so he grew up in the gay culture in the East Coast. So that's why he is, a little bit more comfortable with that aspect of his life than the other parts. Um, but yeah, I also took a shortcut on the process of coming to the US, because the mechanics of forced migration are can be extremely difficult. And it's very difficult also to cross oceans. Um, so I kind of had him come here for another reason, and then when he came here, he kind of applied for um, refugee status, so that he wouldn't have to go through and spend months, years en route before he can make it to this destination. So that's a couple of things that I thought, like I can bring him here, still be like realistic, but also get him here fast enough so that he can grow up a little bit here.
I, I wonder, did you have any aspects of his character? Because a lot of foreigners, when they come here, especially if they come from a culture that's very different from Western culture, that their whole worldview of Western culture is through media, through film, through those kinds of things. So a lot of refugees, even like Russian refugees that have left Russia, a lot of them comment that what they knew of America or what they knew of the West is what they saw in media, and that sometimes the idealized media representation doesn't always meet the reality. So, did you put your character through any of that? That some of the aura of it is dispelled by the reality of what they encountered?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. It kind of happens before the story starts, but you can see the effects of it during the time period that the book covers. And I think that's one of the reasons that he's becoming more and more sensitive to issues like racism, because um, me as someone who didn't grow up here, and he like I'm from outside the system, that I later resettled here and have lived here for a while, but the racism is very tangible and very obvious. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it may not be this obvious to like native born Americans, because you grew up with here, you might take it for granted a little bit. Um, but I think if you pay attention, if foreigners if immigrants here pay attention, um, it's not it's not easy to ignore. So I think that's one of the things that Abdul uh, like impacted his personality and the things that he cares about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly living in Baltimore, working in Baltimore, It's 2014, so Obama is already in his second term. Um, Police shootings are constantly in the news in this city and that city. So in that way, he's already a little bit, or more than a little bit, disillusioned with the
Mm.
picture perfect Hollywood glitter.
Version of America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So you've mentioned police shootings, racism, immigration, domestic violence. These are all very serious topics. Where does your character find his moments of joy?
Um, he's in love.
Fair.
The few moments that he spends with his uh, with the poet that his name is Tyreek. The few moments that he spends with him, he has very good friends that kind of drop on his lap. Like he's not looking for them, but they come um, as like little angels that universe sends you sometimes. So they are a good part of his joy. And his boyfriend, when he behaves, he's a really loving, um, attentive, and caring person. It's just that he is inconsistent. Um, he's inconsistently nice. He's sometimes very not nice. So those
Right.
are those are when Abdul finds his joy. I had this discussion with my editor, and I'm so happy that I asked her. I'm like, there is a lot going on. Do you think there is too much? And she's like, no, don't take anything out because life is messy. And if you want
Mm-hmm.
to portray a realistic life for someone at this stage of their life, someone of this background, their life is messy. Um, and if you pay attention to social political life in the U.S., that's messy. So he told.
Mm-hmm.
Lord, is it messy.
So she that gave me the courage to continue to keep all these like heavy themes, keep them in this book. And but I think, and I can't be a judge of my own writing, but at least when it came to the like my audiobook narrator, he told me that he is enjoying recording it. So I'm like, okay, good. It's not all doom and gloom. There are fun parts. There are things that balance out the heaviness of some of these topics. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like some of I wanted to originally the main theme of the book was domestic violence, and I wanted to write it because I have seen only one other book that talks about domestic violence in a gay relationship, um, and that's Carmen Maria Machado's book. I forget what it's called. In the Dream House, I think it's a memoir.
Huh.
Um, that's the only one I know of. There are like films and short films, longer feature films, some documentary type things that I found on YouTube and here and there. But I thought that's a theme that hasn't been explored, so I wanted to look into it. Um, then the setting the setting I chose because I thought so many movies and books and TV series are based in New York City, and I think sometimes it could be a little bit of a lazy writing because no matter what you do, you can go to Park Avenue and walk by the 32nd Street and this and that. I'm like, no, I want something more challenging. And Baltimore, I live in Silver Spring, Maryland, so Baltimore is like a half-hour drive, and I really like Baltimore, and um, it has that mix that I wanted to include in the book.
Right.
So then, as
Right.
as I continue to explore the characters, the more themes like came. Like I was wondering like what situation in like what Abdul would have to go through in order to stay in a violent relationship, and then the other parts of his background came through. So it kind of they kind of necessitated each other and reinforced like the other parts of the themes that I deal with in the book.
Do they ever achieve a
Nice.
balance, though?
Very nice.
I think there is hope.
Okay.
I don't want to give out the ending, but
Right.
Hmm.
I think
Right.
I think the the necessary elements are there. Um, Abdul has good support now. He's reconnecting with the people that he knew in Afghanistan who helped him. And they live in Washington, D.C., so he has access to them. He just found them during the book. He has very good friends. And he has this love interest who um, kind of motivates action.
Nice. All right. Are you doing any appearances or book fairs or writing another book?
Um, I have started, but not seriously enough. I need to redouble my efforts. But I'm working on a memoir that I want to write with my mom,
Oh, wow.
and
Oh,
that's going to deal with the topic of immigration because we moved a lot, an incredible amount of times. And then after I settled down, she continued to move. So I think that would be interesting. I'm also working on a novel that I have the main structure of, but the research kind of intimidates me a little bit. That's why I put it on pause for now. But both of those are gonna be active projects soon.
Nice. All right. Well, which social media site or website is best for people to follow your updates?
The best one, the best thing, if you want to follow me, the best thing you can do is to go to my website and click on the failure plan, which is a novella that's available for free. And when you sign up to get that to download it, you will automatically sign up for my newsletter that I send like maybe once a month, maybe once every 4, 5, 6 weeks, and that keeps everybody up to date as to like what promotions I have for this and that project, what I'm working on, and that type of like sorry, I can't speak. Book recommendations and that type of things. I have an Instagram account, but mostly I just like pictures as opposed to post pictures. Um, I have a Facebook that I need to. I'm not very good, basically. That's what I'm trying to say.
So
So I think
your
the
web.
best way to keep in touch is to sign up for the newsletter and get the free novella at the same time.
Perfect. All right. Any final words of wisdom?
Wisdom.
Yeah.
I think we just established that I'm a
wait, I gotta
naive
be
idiot.
smart too?
There is childlike wisdom that can come from naivete.
I don't know. Do you guys have any I don't want to use the word trigger. Something that you think yeah. I think Baz had something.
I was just
No,
going to say,
just
just
be kind to
your
one
message
another.
of hope for the world. That's
a good
all you
standpoint.
need.
There you go.
Yes. And don't make fun of refugees.
Very good.
If people eat voraciously, let them have it.
Perfect. All right. We'd like to extend a huge thank you to you, Hamour Baika. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. We at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. So if you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. The show is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.